Today I'm going to do the second in my series of 3 videos on what I call the tripod, the 3 legs that you have to stand on to succeed in language learning, the 3 keys, or whatever you want to call them, the trilogy, the triptych, whatever. There's 3. The first one was your attitude. So I did a video on the kind of attitude you need to have and the kind of attitude you should avoid. I noticed that my microphone wasn't very cleverly placed here. Hopefully the sound improves. Now we're going to talk about time. There are 3 things that you need to succeed in language learning, as I said: attitude, time, and the ability to notice. Time is key. It takes a long time to learn a language. There may be the odd genius or autistic person who can do it in 10 days, 3 months, whatever, but for most people it takes a long time. Luca, who is one of, along with Richard Simcott and a few others, one of those really outstanding multilingual people that you can find on YouTube, he says it takes him 2 years to learn a language. So if it takes Luca 2 years, it takes a long time. Obviously this depends. It's going to take him 2 years perhaps to learn Japanese. I'm sure that going from Latin to Spanish didn't take him anything like 2 years. Time is the major resource that you have to invest in language learning. So you want to make sure that your use of time is as effective and as enjoyable as possible. So it's very important. You got to spend a lot of time, but you want to do it in ways that are effective and enjoyable. And ultimately, it's you, the learner, that has to decide how you want to spend that time. Essentially, to learn a language, you have to listen, you have to read, you have to speak, you might want to write. I think writing is a good thing to do, but it's more difficult to do very often. And you have to review all the nuts and bolts. You review sometimes grammar rules, you review words, and that's sort of the studying of the nuts and bolts. So you have to decide, where do you like to spend your time? Do you like to spend your time reviewing flashcards? Do you like to spend your time reviewing grammar rules? Do you like to spend your time reading, listening, writing, speaking? You decide how to spend the time. The key thing is to spend time with the language, because when you're spending time with the language, that gives your brain a chance to get used to this new language and to develop the neural networks, the connections between neurons that's going to enable you to speak the language comfortably. Now, in my own case, as you may know if you follow my videos, I like to listen and read for the first little while and eventually then start to speak. And so I'm not too fussed about the grammar rules in the early stages. I mean, just today, for example, I was listening to my Echa Moskvi, and they were talking about the recent, disturbances in Warsaw. So I'm getting a Russian perspective on the Euro Cup and the problems, the disturbances between fans there, the Russian and Polish fans. And I'm listening to it and I understand it all. But when I speak, I make mistakes. I still make mistakes with my cases. It doesn't really bother me. I know that I can get in there later on when it matters and I can work on improving them. But I find it enjoyable. I'm interacting with the language. I've spent a lot of time listening and reading. And now if I look at my Czech, for example, which I've been at now for about 8 or 9 months, just today I was, reading various news articles, interviews, and also chapters from The Good Soldier Schweik on Link, where I have all the, words are already saved in yellow. And as I'm reading, I'm listening to it, and essentially I can understand everything. I can understand everything. There's the odd word that I miss, but I'm listening to it. I understand it. Obviously, if I listen without reading, I have more trouble. But I feel a great sense of satisfaction. So I'm doing things that I enjoy doing. I'm interacting with the language. And yet in Czech, I have some of the basic things, the this, that, in masculine, feminine, in different cases. I haven't a clue. And it doesn't bother me, because I know that at a later stage I can go in there and I will focus on getting those right. But in the meantime, I'm getting tremendous enjoyment out of doing the things that I like to do, which is listen and read and access radio, books, I would understand a movie and so forth and so on. But other people may be motivated differently. So the thing is to do the things, spend time on the things that you enjoy doing. In my own view, going to a school, attending a class is relatively low efficiency because unless you're one-on-one with the teacher. But if there is a class with 10 or 15 or 20 people, you're really not interacting so closely with the language. You're not listening to it all the time. You're not reading it all the time. You're listening to your fellow students. It's not something that I like to do. But it's a social event, and some people require it from the point of view of discipline for language learning. So if that's what you like to do, do it. I just think that even if you go to class, what really matters is the time you spend with the language away from class. It's not the time in class. It's the time you spend with the language away from class. The great thing about listening as an activity is that you can create time. You can do it. I'm doing the dishes, I'm doing it. I'm sitting in the car, I'm doing it. So that, that's a very flexible way of getting in the amount of time that you need. People always ask, how much time do you need? Well, it depends on circumstances. I think less than an hour a day, you're not going to make much progress. But I think 45 minutes to an hour a day, I think is a very acceptable amount of time to spend, and you can expect to make good progress in an hour a day. I think that with my Czech now, I probably spending more than an hour a day, because when you first start, it's very tough. It's tiring, it's frustrating, you're forgetting everything, and so it's less fun, so it's hard to get in that hour a day. But now that I can understand so much more, in fact, I'm doing more than an hour a day because I'm downloading stuff from the internet, reading, listening, and having more fun with it. But an hour a day, but if you are a full-time student, you can be doing 6-7 hours a day. And I have always felt that if the more you do a day, that you will learn a lot faster. Like, if you can do 5-6 hours a day, the intensity of that learning experience means that you will learn faster than if you string it out over 3 years. Like, I learned Chinese up to the level of the British Foreign Service exam in about 9 to 10 months, but I was studying 6-7 hours a day. So the more intensive your interaction with the language, the more intensively you spend that time with the language, the quicker you're going to learn. The other thing about it, people always say, well, how long will it take? Don't be so hung up about how long it will take. Try to make sure you enjoy doing it. That should be the goal, because if you enjoy doing it, you'll end up spending enough time and you will learn as quickly as you can learn. So the key is to find activities that you enjoy doing. Now, some reservations. I think there are some activities that are very enjoyable that are probably, at least in my opinion, less efficient. I think reading and listening is more efficient than watching videos or movies because you are totally dependent on the words. Whereas with the videos and the movies, first of all, the dialogue is less dense. There's a lot more action. And second of all, you're getting a lot of hints. That's not to say you shouldn't watch movies, but make sure you get a balance. I think if you were to spend the next 2 years doing nothing but watching, television in the language you're trying to learn, you wouldn't get as far as if you, had the discipline to do a lot more listening and reading. I had a few notes. Just to finalize, of course, the amount of time that you're going to be able to spend or are willing to spend is going to be influenced by your attitude. So the three elements, attitude, time, and the ability to notice, are all interconnected. And we'll see that too when I discuss noticing. But if you like the language, if an immigrant is not happy to be, say, in Canada, they wishes they were back somewhere else, they really don't want to mingle with English-speaking people, they somehow feel that they should learn the language just in case they get stopped by the police or end up in a hospital, those people are not going to put in the time. If they're very motivated, they're thrilled to be here, like I was thrilled to be in Japan, I was thrilled to study Chinese, I was thrilled to be in France. So I was very motivated because I was happy to be there. I wanted to connect with the locals. So the more whatever your motivation is, it could be an interest in the culture, in the literature, a spouse, a friend, music, anime in the case of Japanese. If you're motivated, you're going to spend the time. So there's a real connection between how motivated you are, the attitude, your ability to enjoy it, and the amount of time you spend. So there you have it. You have to spend the time, and you have to find ways to make that time enjoyable and effective. And don't worry too much about how long it takes, but make sure that you do things that you enjoy and that you find are effective. And that can vary from person to person. So thank you for listening. Bye for now.